The rain in Connecticut doesn't just fall, it bites. It was 11:42 p.m. when the front door of the $4 million manor creaked open. I wasn't being welcomed in. I was being tossed out. My mother-in-law, Beatrice, stood there in her cashmere robe, holding a glass of $200 Bordeaux. With her left hand, she shoved my last suitcase down the marble steps. It hit the mud and burst, spilling my daughter's stuffed rabbit into a puddle. A waitress doesn't belong in a house this expensive, Anna, Beatrice sneered. My son finally woke up. He realizes you're just a leech from the slums. Go back to your own kind. I looked at my 3-year-old daughter, Lily, shivering in her car seat. Then I looked up at the house. My father's house. The house he built with his own sweat before he died. Beatrice thought she was evicting a gold digger. She didn't realize that by throwing me out, she had just triggered the bloodline clause in a trust fund she didn't even know existed. In exactly 12 hours, Beatrice wouldn't just be homeless. She would be a fugitive. But first, I had to survive the night with $2 in my pocket. 24 hours earlier, I was making breakfast. Not for myself, I hadn't eaten a full meal in weeks, but for Beatrice and my husband, David. I was the perfect wife. I kept the floors shining, the garden manicured, and my mouth shut. David was the CEO of a rising tech firm, or so everyone thought. When we met, I was a waitress at a small diner. He swept me off my feet with promises of protection and love. He said he wanted to give me the life my father, a humble carpenter, never could. I didn't tell him then that my father wasn't just a carpenter. He was the founder of Legacy Woods Real Estate. I kept my inheritance a secret because I wanted to be loved for me, not my bank account. It was a test David was currently failing. Beatrice entered the kitchen, her nose wrinkled as if she smelled trash. Anna, the hollandaise is slightly broken. Again. Honestly, David, I don't know how you tolerate such domestic incompetence. David didn't even look up from his iPad. She's trying, Mother. She's just a bit slow. I gripped the edge of the counter until my knuckles turned white. Slow. I had graduated magna cum laude while David was still failing his intro to business classes. I was the one who quietly edited his proposals at night while he slept. The charity gala is tonight, Beatrice continued, ignoring me entirely. I've invited the Van Burens. It's time we show them the pedigree of this family. Anna, stay in the kitchen. We can't have the guests seeing your rough edges. I nodded and retreated to the basement. They thought I went there to cry. They didn't know that behind the furnace was a keypad-locked door. Inside that room wasn't old clothes or Christmas decorations. It was a server rack and a wall of monitors. I sat down and typed in a code. The screen flickered to life, showing David's office downtown. He wasn't working on a tech merger. He was looking at offshore accounts. And he was talking to a woman I didn't recognize. Is it done? The woman asked over the speaker. Almost, David replied. My mother is handling the eviction tonight. Once Anna is out of the house, the abandonment clause kicks in. I'll have full control of the estate. My heart stopped. The abandonment clause only existed if I left voluntarily or was legally removed for instability. They weren't just kicking me out, they were framing me. The evening of the gala arrived. The house was filled with the scent of lilies and expensive perfume. I stayed in the shadows, wearing my old waitress uniform. Beatrice insisted I help Ellen, the catering staff, to earn my keep. I watched David charm the room. He was a professional liar. Every time he laughed, I felt a piece of my heart turn to stone. I slipped into David's study to find my passport and Lily's birth certificate. I needed to be ready to run. But the safe was empty. Everything, my identity, my daughter's papers, was gone. Suddenly, the door clicked shut behind me. It was Beatrice. Looking for these. She held up a folder. Her eyes were cold, predatory. David is at the police station right now, Anna. He's filing a report. He's telling them you've been unstable. That you threatened him. That you're unfit to be a mother. My voice trembled. You're lying. David would never take Lily away. He already has. She smiled. She's with a nanny at a hotel. And as for this house, we found the deed in your father's old trunk. It's a shame he didn't leave it to a smarter daughter. David signed it over to me this afternoon. I felt a strange sensation. It wasn't fear anymore. It was a cold, sharp clarity. Beatrice thought she found the deed. What she actually found was a copy I had planted 3 months ago, a copy with a very specific, very illegal transfer of title, error that would trigger an automatic IRS audit the moment it was filed. "Get out, Anna," Beatrice whispered, "before the police arrive to escort you to a psych ward." I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I walked to the mudroom, grabbed 2 trash bags, and stuffed what I could inside. I grabbed Lily from the kitchen. The hotel story was a lie to break me. I knew she was in her high chair. As I stepped out into the storm, Beatrice threw my bags after me. "Don't come back," she yelled over the thunder. I turned around, the rain soaking through my thin shirt. "Beatrice," I called out. "Check the basement safe in the morning. There's a gift for you. I don't want your trash." She slammed the door. She didn't realize the gift was a subpoena. And the waitress she just kicked out. I was about to buy the bank that owned her son's debt. To keep the pacing tight for a YouTube audience, we're shifting the focus to sensory details and the psychological warfare Anna begins to play. This 1,000-word chapter focuses on the bottom of the pit moment and the first spark of the phoenix rising. The dashboard clock read 2:14 a.m. In the backseat of my rusted Toyota, the world felt like it was ending. Every time a car drove past, I ducked, terrified it was David or the police Beatrice had threatened me with. I had exactly $42 in my glove box and a half tank of gas. But as I looked at Lily, clutching the damp, muddy stuffed rabbit Beatrice had kicked into the driveway, I noticed something. The rabbit Barnaby felt heavy. My father had given this to Lily on her first birthday, just weeks before his heart attack. He had pulled me aside that day, his eyes urgent, and told me, "Anna, if the shadows ever catch up to me, look after Barnaby. He's a lucky charm." I thought he was just being a sentimental old man. I was wrong. I felt along the seam of the rabbit's belly. There was a hard, rectangular lump hidden deep inside the polyester stuffing. My breath hitched. I found a small pair of nail clippers in my purse and began to snip the threads. Inside wasn't jewelry or a key. It was a rugged, military-grade USB drive and a handwritten note from my father. "Anna, if you are reading this, David has shown his true face. Do not go to the police. They are on his payroll. Go to the Blue Anchor in the harbor. Ask for the captain. Tell him the tide is high." I stared at the drive. My father hadn't been a simple carpenter. He was an architect of systems, some of them legal, some of them less so. He had known David was a snake long before I did. He had been waiting for me to wake up. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "I see you in the parking lot, Anna. The silver Toyota. Move now. Beatrice just called in a wellness check for a kidnapped child. She's framing you for abduction." My heart hammered against my ribs. I threw the car into gear, my tires screeching on the wet asphalt just as a patrol car turned the corner 2 blocks away. I wasn't a wife anymore. I was a fugitive. I pulled into the shadows of the harbor, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I tucked the USB drive into my bra and carried a sleeping Lily into the salt-scented air of the bar. The captain wasn't a sailor. He was a man in a sharp charcoal suit sitting in the back booth, surrounded by 3 laptops. He looked up, his eyes scanning me with the precision of a laser. "You're late, Anna," he said, his voice like gravel. "Your father said you'd be here 3 years ago. You're a slow learner when it comes to love." "I'm here now," I snapped, my voice finally finding its edge. "Beatrice took the house. David took my life. I want it back. All of it." The captain gestured for me to sit. "They didn't just take your house, kid. They're trying to sell your father's intellectual property, the legacy grid, to a private equity firm in Dubai. The meeting is in 48 hours. If that sale goes through, David becomes a billionaire, and you become a memory in a state mental ward." He plugged the USB drive into his laptop. A map of the mansion appeared on the screen, but it wasn't a floor plan. It was a heat map of the security system. "The safe Beatrice told you about. The one in the basement." The captain smirked. "That's a decoy. The real vault is behind the wine cellar wall. It contains the original patent for the legacy grid. Without it, David's sale is a fraud. But there's a catch. What catch? I asked. The vault only opens with a biometric scan. Yours. And David knows it. He's not trying to kick you out, Anna. He's trying to break you so you'll sign the rights over to him in exchange for seeing your daughter again. I looked at Lily, sleeping peacefully on the vinyl booth. They thought they could use my motherhood as a weapon. They didn't realize it was my fuel. He doesn't have the patent, I whispered. But he has the house. How do I get back in without being arrested? The captain leaned forward, the neon blue light reflecting in his eyes. We don't go in as burglars, Anna. We go in as the new owners. Do you remember what your father's middle name was? Arthur, I said, confused. Look at the property taxes Beatrice paid last month, he said, spinning the laptop around. My jaw dropped. The owner listed wasn't David. It wasn't Beatrice. It was an LLC called King Arthur's Court. My father didn't leave me a house, I realized, a cold smile spreading across my face. He left me the company that owns the entire street. David has been paying rent to a ghost for 5 years. And the rent, the captain added, is officially overdue. By about $4 million. I didn't sleep that night. While Lily slept in the captain's spare room, I spent 6 hours on the phone with forensic accountants in Zurich. By 7 a.m., I knew exactly where David had hidden the money he'd been embezzling from my father's estate. It wasn't in Dubai. It was in a hidden account tied to Beatrice's social security number. He was setting his own mother up to take the fall if the IRS ever came knocking. I picked up my phone and called David. It was the first time I'd spoken to him since the rain started. Anna. His voice was panicked, but scripted. Where are you? The police are looking for you. You need to come home and get help. You're not well. I'm fine, David, I said, my voice as calm as a frozen lake. Actually, I'm better than fine. I'm at the bank. I just realized something interesting about your rent payments. There was a long silence on the other end. I could hear his breathing get heavy. What are you talking about? The bloodline clause, David. You should have read the fine print on the deed you tried to steal. By filing that forged transfer, you didn't get the house. You triggered a total asset freeze for the next of kin. Your credit cards. They'll stop working in 10 minutes. Your car. The GPS will lock the ignition at the next red light. You're bluffing, he hissed. Check your balance, David. And tell Beatrice to enjoy her wine. It's the last bottle she'll ever have that she didn't have to steal. I hung up. The game hadn't just changed. I had flipped the board. But as I walked back to the car, a black SUV with tinted windows blocked my path. 2 men in suits stepped out. They weren't police. And they weren't working for David. Mrs. Legacy, one of them asked. The board of directors is ready for you. This chapter shifts from survival to strategic dominance. We are moving into the empire building phase of the heroine's journey, where the underdog reveals she was actually the shark all along. The men in the black SUV didn't kidnap me. They escorted me. Your father had a protocol for this, Mrs. Legacy, the taller one said as the elevator climbed to the 50th floor. He said if you ever showed up at the Blue Anchor, it meant the wolves were at the door. Our job is to help you release the hounds. As the elevator doors chimed, I stepped into a hallway lined with portraits of the founders of Legacy Tech. At the very end was my father, Arthur. He was smiling in the photo, a secret glint in his eye, as if he knew that one day, his daughter would finally stop playing small. I could hear David's voice booming from behind the double doors of the boardroom. He was pitching the sale of the Legacy grid to a group of international investors. This technology is the future of energy, David told them, his voice oily with false confidence. And as the sole executor of the Legacy estate, I am authorized to finalize this merger today. We just need the final signatures. I signaled the security guards. They didn't stop me. They bowed. I pushed the doors open. The heavy oak hit the stoppers with a crack that sounded like a gunshot. The room went silent. 30 heads turned toward me. David's face went from triumphant to ghostly pale in 3 seconds. Anna, what are you doing here? Guards. This woman she's mentally unwell. She's been trespassing. I didn't look at him. I walked straight to the head of the table, pulled out the leather chair, and sat down. The only person trespassing here, David, is you, I said, my voice projecting with a cold authority that shocked even me. I laid the USB drive from Barnaby the rabbit on the glass table. You told these gentlemen you are the sole executor. That's a fascinating claim, considering my father's will contains a morality clause that nullifies all your rights the moment you are investigated for domestic fraud. David let out a forced laugh, looking at the investors. She's delusional. My mother and I have the deed. We have the filing. You have a forgery, I countered. The Blue Anchor Protocol has already alerted the SEC. While you were busy throwing my bags into the mud last night, the legacy grid was automatically moved into a secondary trust. One that requires a biometric scan to unlock. I looked at the lead investor, a stern man named Mr. Al-Fayed. Sir, I am Anna Legacy. The grid is mine, and it is not for sale. David's phone began to vibrate incessantly on the table. It was Beatrice. I knew what she was calling about. The movers I had hired, the legal ones, were currently at the mansion with a court order to reclaim stolen property. You think you're smart? David hissed, leaning over the table, his face inches from mine. You have nothing. I've spent 3 years burying the trail of where the money went. You'll never prove a thing. I don't have to prove it, David, I whispered back, so only he could hear. I just had to wait for you to try to sell the company. To sell the grid, you had to open the alpha folder. And the moment you tried to bypass the encryption last night, you sent a mirrored copy of your entire hard drive to the captain. David froze. He realized then that the helpless waitress he had married was the daughter of the man who had built the most secure data systems in the world. I hadn't just been his wife, I had been his silent auditor for 7 years. Mr. Al-Fayed stood up, his face grim. Mr. David, it seems there is a significant cloud over your title. Our firm does not do business with men who are currently being foreclosed upon by their own wives. Wait, David pleaded. This is a misunderstanding. Anna, tell them. I will tell them the truth, I said, standing up. I will tell them that for 5 years, you and your mother lived off my father's sweat while treating me like a servant in my own home. I will tell them that you tried to frame the mother of your child as unstable to cover up your embezzlement. I turned to the board. Gentlemen, the meeting is adjourned. David, you have 5 minutes to leave this building before security tosses you out. And just so you know, Beatrice is currently sitting on the sidewalk in the rain. Apparently, she didn't have the key to the guest house either. As David was dragged out, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, but the victory wasn't complete. I knew Beatrice. She was like a cockroach, she always had a backup plan. My phone rang. It was the captain. Anna, we have a problem, he said. Beatrice didn't just sit on the sidewalk. She took something from the basement safe before the movers got there. Something your father didn't tell you about. My heart dropped. What? The kill switch codes for the city's power grid. Your father built them as a fail-safe for the government, but Beatrice thinks they're a bargaining chip. She's headed to the airport. She's not trying to stay in the house anymore, she's trying to burn the whole forest down. I looked out at the rain. Beatrice had always been the real villain. David was just her puppet. She had thrown my bags out to distract me while she went for the real prize. But she forgot one thing. I wasn't just my father's daughter. I was the woman who had spent 5 years learning every single one of her secrets while I served her tea. Captain, I said, grabbing my purse. Don't call the police. Call the airport hangar. Tell them the owner of the private jet is requesting an emergency maintenance lock. It's time I show my mother-in-law what happens when you try to steal from a woman who has nothing left to lose. This is the final showdown. To ensure maximum watch looping, we are going to deliver the ultimate emotional payoff. The moment Beatrice realizes she hasn't just lost the house, but she has lost her entire identity. Beatrice always said that money was the only thing that kept the world spinning. As I pulled my SUV onto the tarmac, my headlights cutting through the storm, I realized she was wrong. It isn't money, it's leverage. And for the first time in my life, I had all of it. I stepped out of the car. The wind tried to push me back, but I stood my ground. Beatrice spun around, her expensive silk scarf fluttering like a white flag of surrender she refused to wave. You, she shrieked over the roar of the engines. You ruined everything. David is in handcuffs because of your lies. David is in handcuffs because he's a thief, Beatrice, I shouted back. And you're standing in the rain because you're a ghost. Look at the tail number on that plane. Beatrice looked. The logo on the jet wasn't her son's company. It was the stylized L of the Legacy estate. The pilot isn't waiting for you, I said, walking closer until we were just feet apart. He's waiting for me. I called ahead. I told him a trespasser was trying to board with stolen government property. I'll do it, Anna. She held the metal box over the wet pavement. I'll trigger the sequence. I'll black out the entire coast. If I can't have my life back, I'll make sure no one has anything. I didn't flinch. I actually smiled. Go ahead, Beatrice. Press the button. She hesitated, her thumb trembling over the sensor. You think I'm bluffing? No, I said calmly. I think you're desperate. But what you don't know is that my father didn't put the kill switch in that box. He knew someone like you would eventually try to use it. That box doesn't control the power grid. It's a GPS tracker. And the moment you opened it in the basement, you broadcast your location directly to the federal marshals. In that second, the silent darkness of the airfield was